Shabbos, everyone. This week is Shabbos Hagadol. Sunday is Yud Aleph Nisan, and we're preparing for the Yom Tov of Pesach. Simultaneously, we're also unfortunately in the midst of a terrible situation, many tragedies taking place, and we're davening to the Eibishter that this all should come to an end very quickly. The Eibishter should be menachem, comfort those families that are unfortunately lost their loved ones with the ultimate comfort of the coming of Mashiach and Chiyas HaMesim, and all those that need a refuah shlema, we should increase in our tefillos and Torah tefillah stuck in their merit. The month of Nisan comes from the word nes. Nes means a miracle, but nes literally means something which is uplifted. Kanes ala harim, a high stick. Sim oisei al nes, a high pole, something which is above and beyond. And the two are connected because a miracle is something which is above nature. It's right away recognizable. It's something which stands out above the normal day-to-day life. And we know that in the Jewish calendar there's two main parts. There's the months and there's the year. The year starts in Tishrei and the months start with Nisan. Because the year represents the normal, regular cycle of life. That starts with Tishrei. And Nisan represents a supernatural cycle. That's the idea of the new month, which in month, as I discussed a few weeks ago, is the idea of a renewal, which is the new moon, which is the idea of miracles. The Jewish people experience a supernatural connection with Hashem and a supernatural interference of Hashem in their day-to-day lives. What does this mean from a Jew? The Rabbi spoke a number of times that in the service of Hashem there's the regular day-to-day service that a Jew serves Hashem in a limited way, and then there's the Avodah Nisis. The month of Nisan demands from a person that he shouldn't just suffice with his regular standard service of Hashem, but he should go above and beyond the norm. Above and beyond the norm doesn't have to mean breaking mountains and smashing highways. But as Rebbe once said in a Maimer, that if a person learns 5 minutes more than he usually does, for that person that's going l'mayla m'medidav hagbala, that's going beyond his limitation. So the month of Nisan represents in Avodas Hashem the demand to go above and beyond nature. Applying it particularly in the times that we're going through right now is perhaps one thing I would point out is that even during the hardest times and different things that were going on, whether it was in Eretz Yisrael or in other Jewish communities, a number of tragedies were taking place. The Rebbe never was happy when people would describe the situation in gloomy terms. Despite the fact that the Rebbe obviously felt the pain much more than we did, but the Rebbe always focused on the idea of trach gut vet sein gut, always be positive. And that idea of being positive in a certain sense is also a certain spice of a miracle, of a miraculous thinking. Not to be pessimistic, not to be pushed down by what's going on, but to always be positive. You know, the Rebbe was, more than anyone we could think of, even more than other Gedolei Yisrael of previous generations, was always highlighted the utmost positivity in all matters. So the month of Nisan particularly emphasizes that we should be mechazik our positive thinking, going beyond the limitations of nature and beyond what seems to be inevitable, that we should strengthen our emunah, our bitachon, that things will work out trach gut vet sein gut, as the Rebbe demanded to do even in the most trying times. Another thought connected with Yud Aleph Nisan, like I mentioned before, Nisan means uplifted. We know one of the famous customs that we do during the month of Nisan is that we say the Nasi. For the first 13 days of the month of Nisan, we recite the Nasi. What is the Nasi? The Nasi is the sacrifices that the leaders of the Shvatim brought during the inauguration of the Mishkan. Now the word Nasi also is associated with the word Nisan. Nasi means uplifted. Ufgeheben, Nasi Yisreish, lifting up the Jewish people. And we also, the Rebbe once spoke about this. There's a Rashi that we had a few weeks ago in Parshas Vayakov Lekudi. It says, Vanasim Heviu, the leaders brought the gems that were needed for the Mishkan. One interpretation of the Nasiim is the clouds. There's the leaders and there's the clouds. And what is the connection between a leader and a cloud? The cloud represents something which is completely above and beyond. You know, it totally transcends the world that we're living in right here. It's above everything. And a Nasi has the ability to lift us up. The Nasi, the leader of the generation, the Rebbe's job is to lift us up, that we should experience life, not the way things seem to be down here, but somebody that takes off on a plane. Well, before was a huge building that was intimidating, and those big buildings that were intimidating, when a person takes off and he goes on an airplane, a few seconds later, after takeoff, they look extremely small. And that's the power that a Nasi does. He lifts us up, and we see things from a much higher, a much more miraculous reality. Now, this is the job of every Nasi. What's interesting is, Chassidim point out that from the Tzemach Tzedek down, the first 13 days of Nisan have a day that's connected with each one of the Rebbeim. Beis Nisan is the yard site of the Rebbe Rashab, and also the beginning of the Nesius of the Frierdiker Rebbe. Yud Aleph Nisan is the Rebbe's birthday, and Yud Gimel Nisan is the passing of the Tzemach Tzedek, which automatically was also the beginning of the Nesius of the Rebbe Marash. So a lot of the Nesiim, a lot of the Rebbes are associated with the Nasi that we say, which goes back to the Nesiim in the desert, but it's obviously connected with the Nesiim of Nesiei Chabad and our Rebbe, our Nasi in particular. One thing we saw by the Rebbe that maybe was the hallmark of the Rebbe more than all previous generations, if we could say that, is this miraculous approach. The Rebbe demanded non-stop. It was impossible to keep up with the Rebbe's pace. The Rebbe started one mitzvah, then another one, and all those that are familiar with the history of how things evolved, we see that the Rebbe's demands and lack of being satisfied with what happened, with what was already done, and the appetite for more and more was completely represented this avodah nisus, this demand that a Jew should serve Hashem beyond his limitations. Whereas in previous generations, the Rebbeim also demanded a lot, but we don't find this type of non-stop, consistent demand to go above and beyond much more than was done the day before, as great as that might have been. The one that we don't find it as strong as we find it by the Rebbe. So also we know the Rebbe emphasized himself that the Rebbe's Nesius, the Rebbe's leadership is associated with the number 11. The Rebbe became Rebbe Yud Aleph, the 11th of Shvat. Shvat is the 11th month in the year 5711. The Rebbe's birthday is Yud Aleph Nisan 11, and the Rebbe emphasized many times that 11 represents one higher than 10. 10 is the norm, the 10 spheres. 10 is a complete number. The number 11 represents something which is above nature. And the Rebbe kept on demanding non-stop from his Chassidim as well, that we should always keep on going, always be on our toes, never, whatever we thought we did great, amazing things the day before, to always go further and further the next day. And this wasn't only matters of action, but also, like I mentioned before, matters of thought and feeling and positivity. The Rebbe demanded from us that we should have complete emunah and bitachon, and despite the trying time, we should have a positive approach and a positive way of thinking, even if for us it seems like it's a little miraculous of a stretch of our imagination. But this is what the Rebbe demanded very strongly, that we should have a complete, positive, l'mayla min hateva, beyond the limitations of nature approach. Now, this is another thing that is associated with the month of Nisan, with Yud Aleph Nisan, which we're celebrating this Sunday. Say one thing regarding the Yom Tov of Pesach. This year, hopefully we know that the night of Pesach in general is called Leil Shimurim. So even though we know the Mashiach can come and is supposed to come any day of the year, but the main official set time for Mashiach to come is the night of Pesach. Although, and we don't have to wait until then, but that's the most opportune time from the whole year, as explained in a number of sources. So the night of Pesach is a time where we're all hoping that even before then we'll already be in Eretz Yisrael, and all whatever's going on be transformed, and we'll see the good, positive outcome of the coming of Mashiach. But even if we're Chas Shalom still stuck in Galus, and this year particularly is going to be very hard for many people. Pesach plans that were planned for months have all of a sudden been dropped, and people have to scramble to try to put together some type of Yom Tov Pesach. Just a few thoughts and stories just want to share to give people a little bit of a positive thought to go through the Yom Tov. There's a mimer of the Frierdiker Rebbe in the Sefer HaMamorim Yiddish, the last mimer, entitled Shalom Rav Levi Serasach. He writes there I'm not going to go through the whole story. He writes at length a story of the Baal Shem Tov. Baal Shem Tov had two students, Rab Nosson and Rab Avram. Rab Nosson was a very big Talmid Chacham, but in Midas Tovos and working on himself in the actual good Midas character traits wasn't his specialty. Then he had a very simple Jew, a guy that also wasn't so rich, Rab Avram, and you might have not understood Torah in a very deep way, but he was very focused on serving the Eibishter and working on himself and refining his character traits. And it came the night of Pesach. The Baal Shem Tov was sitting by his Seder, and he was in a very good mood, and he was speaking about the great pleasure the Eibishter has from simple Jews. And the Baal Shem Tov told his students they should close their eyes, each put their hand on the shoulder of their friend, and then the Baal Shem Tov put his two hands on the two shoulders of the two students sitting next to him, completing the circle, and he started singing a song. And at that moment, the Baal Shem Tov students had a vision. They saw Rab Avram and Rab Nosson, respectively, each at home celebrating Pesach. They saw that Rab Avram was very poor and he was living in a small village, and he had very little for Pesach, but he was sitting with his family and they were all celebrating Pesach with great joy. Rab Nosson was rich and he had a table laden with all good things, but every member of his family was all angry at the other. They weren't properly celebrating Pesach in the right spirit. And the Baal Shem Tov explained to his students that this is the difference between someone that works on himself, so he always sees the positive in another person, he always sees the positive in every situation, whereas someone that might be very learned but doesn't work on himself, so he's always upset, he's always not happy with what he has, even if he has a lot of good things. And I'm just maybe to stretch it to the situation that's going on today, for many people, in many different ways, their Pesach experience won't be exactly what they were planning. Begashmius or Beruchnius are both together, and just one thing, maybe they're not celebrating it in the place and the type of manner that they wanted to, but again, let's not forget that the Simcha of Yom Tov remains whether we're in a hotel, whether we have all our family with us, that the families have to be isolated, unfortunately, one another. We should still try to see the happiness of the night of Pesach and celebrate it appropriately under the circumstances that we're able to. This is also one of the highlights of the night of Pesach in general. If you think about it, the night of Pesach seems to be a paradox. It seems to be two opposites coming together. We're celebrating redemption, but what are we celebrating redemption if we're still in Galus for? It's a contradiction of terms. How are we able to celebrate a redemption that took place hundreds of years ago if right now, unfortunately, we're still in exile? What are we celebrating it for? And the Rabbi spoke once a whole long sikha about this, and one of the points in a nutshell is that the holiday of Pesach gives us the ability that despite the fact that we're still in Galus, but that we're still able to sustain ourselves, to lift ourselves up, and to connect with the promise of redemption. So even though by the Seder itself there might be things that remind us of Galus, we have Mother, and this year I'm sure unfortunately a lot of people don't have a lack of that, and there might be other things that are going to be missing this year. Hopefully we'll all be in Yerushalayim, but even if Chas v'Shalom not, nevertheless the Yom Tov of Pesach is that Eibishter gives us, even though there's Heilach Ma'anya and Skel Dichfin, there's poverty, physical poverty, spiritual poverty, circumstantial poverty. Nevertheless, the Eibishter tells us that Ashat HaHachal L'Shana Haba B'Arad Yisrael, that we have the ability to lift ourselves up and to experience Geula and to experience the promise of redemption and to be able to celebrate the Simcha of Yom Tov despite whatever is going on around us. But the Eibusher should help that we shouldn't have to speak about this and try to find comfort and try to find happiness and meaning in these trying times, but he should show it to us in an open way, in a revealed way, in a miraculous way. The Eibusher should take us all out of Golus, and we should celebrate this Pesach the ultimate way, together with Mashiach. Every family will be sitting together by the Karban Pesach, and we should have together with Mashiach and the return of all the people that passed away, and complete health for all those that needed a full Shalom. And we should now celebrate it together with the Rebbe and with all the other Nesiim in a way as it describes about Mashiach. The Mashiach, as the Rebbe said many, many times, will come with the clouds of heaven, representing a complete miraculous turnover of the situation in a way that's beyond imagination, just like the clouds are completely above us. So beyond our wildest imaginations, the same way no one in their wildest imagination could have imagined what's going on now in a negative way. So in a positive way, we should experience redemption above our wildest imaginations, and should happen take it from Yad Mamish.